Commander Kang Dae-ho stood before the massive viewing window of the generation ship New Seoul and stared into the endless darkness of space. His weathered hands pressed against the cold metal railing as he watched distant stars flicker like dying embers. Behind him, the soft hum of machinery filled the air while thousands of humans lived their daily lives inside the ship that had been their home for countless generations. The ship stretched for kilometers in every direction. Its hull was scarred from decades of travel through asteroid fields and cosmic storms. Inside its metal walls lived the descendants of Earth's survivors. People who had never felt real sunlight on their faces or breathed air that was not recycled through filters and machines. Yet they all carried the same burning desire in their hearts that had kept humanity alive for 30,000 years. Dae-ho turned when he heard footsteps approaching. Dr. Park So-jin walked toward him carrying a data pad in her hands. Her lab coat was stained with the blue liquid she used to study alien specimens. Her eyes were tired, but filled with the same determination that drove every human on the ship. "The reconnaissance report just came in," she said as she handed him the pad. "Captain Lee Hyun-woo has returned from the Sol system." Dae-ho took the device and began reading the information on its screen. The words made his jaw clench with anger. Earth was still dead. The blue planet that had once been home to billions of humans was now nothing more than a brown rock floating in space. The Veltar had stripped away its atmosphere and mined its surface until nothing remained but dust and broken stone. "How long has it been like this?" he asked, even though he already knew the answer. 30,000 years. So-jin replied, "Ever since they drove us away." The two humans stood in silence as they thought about their lost home. Neither of them had ever seen Earth except in old pictures and videos. Their great-grandparents had been born on the generation ships during the long journey away from the Sol system. Yet the memory of their homeworld burned in their minds like a flame that would never die. So-jin pulled up another file on her datapad. "I have been studying the Veltar for decades," she said. "I finally found something that might help us." She showed him detailed pictures of the aliens who had destroyed Earth. The Veltar looked like giant insects with 4 arms and hard shells covering their bodies. Their eyes were large and black, like pieces of coal. They had sharp teeth that could tear through metal and claws that could cut stone. "They have one major weakness," So-jin explained. "Their shells can protect them from most weapons, but they cannot handle certain sound frequencies. If we can create the right sonic pulse, we can crack their armor and make them vulnerable." Dae-ho studied the information carefully. After 30,000 years of hiding and running, humanity finally had a chance to fight back. They had spent centuries building new weapons and training soldiers. Their technology had grown far beyond what their ancestors possessed when they first fled Earth. "How many ships do we have now?" he asked. "Admiral Kim Yuna has been gathering the scattered fleets for months," So-jin said. "The latest count shows over 5,000 vessels ready for battle. Each one is equipped with weapons the Veltar have never seen before." Captain Lee Hyun-woo entered the observation deck still wearing his pilot suit. His face was grim as he approached the 2 senior officers. He had just returned from the most dangerous mission any human had attempted in thousands of years, flying close enough to Earth to gather intelligence without being detected by Veltar patrols. "Commander," he said with a salute, "the enemy has grown lazy. They think all humans are dead. Their defenses around Earth are weak compared to what they maintain in other systems." This news brought the first smile to Dae-ho's face in many months. The Veltar's greatest mistake was believing they had completely destroyed humanity 30,000 years ago. They had no idea that millions of humans had escaped in generation ships and had been preparing for this moment ever since. "What about their mining operations?" Dae-ho asked. "They are pulling materials from Earth's core," Hyun-woo replied. "The planet will be completely hollow within a few hundred years if we do not stop them. But their focus on mining means most of their military forces are stationed elsewhere." So-jin activated a holographic display that showed the current state of the Sol system. Red dots marked Veltar installations on Mars and the moons of Jupiter. Yellow lines showed their patrol routes between planets. Blue areas indicated where human ships could hide without being detected. "We have one advantage they do not expect," she said. "Our new stealth technology can make our ships invisible to their sensors. We can position our entire fleet in the asteroid belt without them knowing we are there." Admiral Kim Yuna's voice suddenly echoed through the ship's communication system. Her words reached every human on every vessel in the hidden fleet. "Attention, all citizens of humanity. The time has come to reclaim our birthright. For 30,000 years we have wandered among the stars as refugees. Today we begin our journey." Umdeho felt his heart race as he listened to the Admiral's speech. Around him, other crew members had stopped their work to hear her words. Children who had never seen a planet looked up at the speakers with wonder in their eyes. Adults who had spent their entire lives dreaming of this moment stood with tears running down their faces. "We are no longer the same species that fled Earth so long ago," the Admiral continued. "We have grown stronger. We have built better weapons. We have learned to survive in the harshest conditions the universe can create. The Veltar think they destroyed us, but they only forged us into something more dangerous than they could ever imagine." The ship began to change course as it received new navigation orders. All around them, other vessels of the human fleet were doing the same. Ships that had been hidden in nebulae and behind asteroids for decades were finally moving toward their target. The greatest gathering of human military power in history was assembling for the assault on their former home. So Jin looked at her research one more time. "The Veltar Empire spans dozens of star systems," she said. "But they made one fatal error. They left our homeworld poorly defended because they believe no threat exists there." Daeho nodded as he watched the stars outside begin to move in new directions. The long exile was finally coming to an end. Humanity was going home. Not as refugees or survivors, but as warriors seeking justice for 30,000 years of suffering. The Generation ship New Soul and thousands of others just like it disappeared into the darkness between stars. Their advanced engines left no trace of their passage. Their stealth systems made them invisible to enemy detection. For the first time since the Great Exodus, humanity was returning to the Sol system. The war for Earth was about to begin. Major Choi Minho felt his boots touch solid ground for the first time in his life. The surface beneath his feet was not the metal deck of a spacecraft, but actual soil from Earth itself. Even through his environmental suit, he could sense that he was standing on humanity's birth world after 30,000 years of exile. The landing site was hidden in what had once been the ruins of Sol. Ancient skyscrapers lay broken and twisted like the bones of some massive creature. The air was poison and the sky was the color of dried blood. Nothing lived here except for the automated mining machines that crawled across the landscape like metal insects. Sergeant Nam Ji-eun emerged from the landing craft behind him, carrying a heavy pack filled with explosives and targeting equipment. Her movements were careful and silent as she scanned the area for signs of Veltar patrols. The reconnaissance mission required absolute stealth because discovery would doom the entire human fleet. "Professor Yoon Tae-young will meet us at the old university district," Minho whispered into his communicator. "Private Shin Woo-jin is setting up the first beacon 2 kilometers north of here." The team moved through the devastated city like ghosts returning to haunt their former home. Every step took them deeper into a graveyard of human civilization. Street signs written in Korean characters were still visible on some buildings, but the words were cracked and faded. Vehicles that had been abandoned 30,000 years ago were now nothing more than rust and metal fragments. Ji-eun stopped beside what had once been a children's playground. The swings and slides were buried under layers of toxic dust. She knelt down and began digging with her gloved hands until she found a piece of colored plastic that might have been part of a toy. For a moment, her professional composure cracked, and tears formed in her eyes. "My grandmother told me stories about places like this," she said quietly. "Children would come here to play and laugh in the sunlight." Minho placed his hand on her shoulder. Every member of the landing team carried the weight of their people's loss. They were the first humans to walk on Earth since the Great Exodus. The responsibility was almost too much to bear. They continued moving through the ruins until they reached their first objective. A massive Veltar mining facility had been built where the old government buildings once stood. Giant machines with spinning blades carved into the ground while conveyor belts carried dirt and rock toward processing plants. The aliens had been strip mining Earth's surface for millennia, without any regard for what had existed there before. Young Wujin's voice crackled through their communicators. "First beacon is in place," he reported. "I can see at least 50 Veltar workers around the northern mining complex. They do not seem to be paying attention to anything except their machines." Ji-Yun activated her targeting scanner and began marking locations for the orbital bombardment that would come later. Each beacon she placed would guide human weapons to critical enemy installations. The plan was to cripple the Veltar mining operations in the first wave of attacks. Professor Yoon Tae-young appeared from behind a collapsed building carrying an ancient data storage device. His face was pale with excitement as he approached the military team. He had spent decades studying Earth's history and culture. Finding intact records from before the Exodus was like discovering buried treasure. "I found something incredible," he said, as he activated the device. "This contains the final messages sent by Earth's defenders during the last battle. Our ancestors left us a record of what happened here." The holographic display showed images of the Veltar invasion 30,000 years ago. Massive alien ships had filled the sky while insect-like soldiers poured from landing craft. Human military forces had fought desperately, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. The final transmission showed Admiral Park commanding the evacuation fleets while the last defense stations exploded around him. "They knew they could not win," Tae-young explained. "But they bought enough time for the generation ships to escape. Millions of humans died so that our people could survive in exile." Minho studied the historical records carefully. The courage of their ancestors had made the current mission possible. Now it was time for the descendants to honor their sacrifice by reclaiming what had been stolen. A warning signal flashed on Ji-Yun's scanner. "Veltar patrol approaching from the east," she whispered urgently. 6 soldiers with heavy weapons." The team took cover behind the wreckage of an old bus while the alien patrol moved past their position. The Veltar were even more hideous in person than they appeared in intelligence photos. Their insect bodies moved with mechanical precision, while their black eyes scanned the ruins for any signs of threat. Fortunately, their sensors were designed to detect large movements and energy signatures, rather than individual humans using stealth technology. After the patrol disappeared, Minho led his team toward their final objective. Intelligence reports indicated that a major Veltar command center had been built in the area where Seoul's main university once stood. Destroying this facility would blind the enemy's communication network throughout the Sol system. Wujin had never seen anything except the inside of spacecraft until this mission. Walking through the ruins of humanity's homeworld filled him with emotions he could not name. Anger at what had been destroyed, sadness for what had been lost, but most of all determination to make the aliens pay for their crimes. How could they do this? He asked as they passed the remains of what might have been a hospital. This was a place where people lived and worked and raised families. "The Veltar do not think like humans," Minho replied. "To them, we are just another species to be eliminated or enslaved. They cannot understand concepts like mercy or coexistence." The command center came into view as they climbed over a hill made from the rubble of collapsed buildings. It was a massive structure built from the same black metal that covered Veltar. Ships. Energy shields protected its walls while automated defense towers scanned the surrounding area. At least 200 alien soldiers were stationed around its perimeter. Ji-Yun began calculating the amount of explosives needed to penetrate the facility's defenses. "If we can get inside, I can place charges that will bring down the entire structure," she said. "But getting past those guards will not be easy." Tae-young activated his portable scanner and pointed it at the command center. "The building is constructed on top of the old university library," he said with excitement. "There might be tunnel systems we can use to approach from underground." The team spent several hours mapping the area and identifying weak points in the Veltar defenses. They planted targeting beacons at strategic locations while avoiding enemy patrols. Each successful placement brought them closer to their goal of preparing Earth for liberation. As night fell over the devastated landscape, Minho gathered his team for the final phase of their mission. They had collected enough intelligence to guide the main assault and planted enough beacons to ensure accurate targeting. Most importantly, they had proven that humans could return to Earth and operate successfully despite 3 decades of alien occupation. Tomorrow the fleet will arrive, he told his soldiers. When Admiral Kim Yuna gives the order, our people will finally come home. We are no longer refugees hiding among the stars. We are warriors ready to reclaim our birthright. The small team of human soldiers disappeared into the ruins of their ancient capital city. Behind them, the Veltar continued their mining operations without knowing that their greatest nightmare was about to become reality. Humanity had returned to Earth, and this time they were not running away. Fleet Admiral Jung Hyun-soo stood in the command center of the flagship Incheon, watching as thousands of human vessels emerged from hyperspace around the Sol system. Ships that had been hidden in distant nebulae for decades now revealed themselves in the greatest display of human military power in 30,000 years. Each vessel was equipped with weapons and technology that the Veltar had never encountered before. The stealth fields that had concealed the human fleet flickered and disappeared as the ships prepared for battle. Sleek destroyers took positions around massive battleships while fighter squadrons launched from carrier decks. In the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, entire battle stations began to unfold like mechanical flowers as they activated systems that had been dormant for centuries. Colonel Oh Soo-bin received her orders through the secure communication channel. Her ghost battalion consisted of 300 elite soldiers who had trained their entire lives for this moment. They would strike at Veltar installations throughout the system while the main fleet engaged enemy forces in space. Speed and surprise were essential because the aliens outnumbered humanity in total ships and soldiers. "All units report ready for Operation Homecoming," came the voice of Admiral Kim Yuna from the fleet command ship. "Today we end 30,000 years of exile. Today we take back what was stolen from us." Engineer Chief Bae Dong-min watched as his greatest creation came online. The self-replicating battle stations had been secretly building themselves in the asteroid belt for over 2 centuries. Using raw materials from the rocks around them, they had constructed weapons platforms capable of destroying entire fleets. Now dozens of these massive structures were emerging from their hiding places among the asteroids. Captain Moon Ji-hai climbed into her fighter cockpit and activated the advanced flight systems. Her Phantom Wing squadron consisted of the best pilots humanity had produced during the long exile. Their ships could phase in and out of normal space, making them almost impossible to target with conventional weapons. The first priority was to destroy Veltar communication arrays and isolate enemy forces from each other. The attack began with surgical strikes on key targets throughout the Sol system. Ghost Battalion teams materialized on Mars using teleportation technology and began sabotaging mining facilities. On the moons of Jupiter, human commandos attacked Veltar supply depots while avoiding civilian workers who had been enslaved by the alien empire. Soo-bin led her team through the corridors of a Veltar command station orbiting Europa. The aliens inside had no warning before human soldiers appeared in their midst using personal cloaking devices. The sonic weapons developed by Dr. Park So-jin proved devastatingly effective as they cracked Veltar armor and left the insect soldiers helpless. Target neutralized, Soo-bin reported as her team secured the station's control room. "We now have access to their orbital defense network." Similar reports came from strike teams across the system as human forces overwhelmed surprised Veltar garrisons. The aliens had grown complacent after 30 millennia without serious opposition. Their sensors were designed to detect conventional threats rather than the advanced stealth technology humanity had developed during exile. Moon Ji-hai's squadron struck the first major blow in space combat. Her fighters phased through the shields of a Veltar patrol cruiser and attacked its engines from inside the defensive barrier. The alien ship exploded in a brilliant flash while its escorts tried desperately to target enemies they could barely detect. "Phantom Wing to Fleet Command," she transmitted as her pilots regrouped for the next attack. "First enemy patrol destroyed with 0 friendly casualties. Moving to engage communication satellites." The battle expanded rapidly as more Veltar forces responded to the unexpected assault. Alien reinforcements arrived from the outer system while emergency signals went out to nearby star systems. For the first time in 30,000 years, the insect empire faced an enemy that could match their technology and exceed their tactical skills. Dongmin's battle stations proved their worth as a Veltar battle fleet tried to approach Earth. The massive weapons platforms unleashed concentrated energy beams that could tear through alien armor like paper. Ships that had terrorized dozens of species found themselves outgunned by human engineering that had been perfected over centuries of preparation. Battle stations, Alpha through Epsilon report successful engagement, Dongmin announced to the fleet. Command. Enemy battle group neutralized, no survivors. The news of human attacks spread through Veltar communication networks faster than their commanders could suppress it. Reports of impossible technology and ghostly soldiers created panic among alien forces throughout the Empire. Species that had been extinct for 30,000 years were somehow striking back with weapons beyond their previous capabilities. Admiral Hyunsu coordinated the complex battle from his command ship while analyzing intelligence reports from across the system. The surprise phase of the attack was going better than anyone had dared hope. Human forces had destroyed or captured over half of the Veltar installations in the Sol system without suffering significant losses. But the Admiral knew that their greatest challenge still lay ahead. Overlord Vexai commanded the Veltar forces from his massive fortress ship positioned above Earth's North Pole. Intelligence reports indicated that the alien leader possessed weapons capable of destroying entire planets. If he decided that Earth could not be held, he might try to obliterate it, rather than let humans reclaim their homeworld. All fleet commanders prepare for Phase 2, Yunsu ordered. We move against the primary target in 6 hours. This is our chance to end the war before it spreads to other systems. Subin's teams had successfully captured 3 major Veltar installations and were providing detailed intelligence about enemy capabilities. The aliens were using human prisoners as forced labor in their mining operations. Thousands of people who had been captured during raids on human colonies were being held in prison facilities throughout the system. We have located the detention centers, Subin reported. Requesting permission to mount rescue operations. Approved, came the reply from Admiral Kim Yuna. Every human life is precious. Bring our people home. Moon Jihai's fighters continued their systematic destruction of Veltar communication networks. Without coordination between their scattered forces, the aliens were fighting as isolated units rather than as a unified military force. This made them vulnerable to the coordinated attacks that human commanders had been planning for decades. The first major space battle occurred near Luna, when a Veltar heavy cruiser attempted to break through the human blockade. The alien ship was 3 times larger than any human vessel, but it found itself surrounded by dozens of smaller ships that struck from multiple directions simultaneously. Advanced human weapons overwhelmed its shields while boarding parties teleported directly onto its bridge. This is impossible, transmitted the Veltar captain in his dying breath. Humans are extinct. You cannot exist. We are very much alive, replied the human boarding party leader, and we have come to collect what you owe us. As the battle continued, reports reached Overlord Vexai in his fortress above Earth. The alien commander had personally led the extermination campaign 30,000 years earlier. He had watched human cities burn and taken pride in eliminating what he considered an inferior species. Now those same humans had returned with technology that surpassed his own. Impossible, he hissed as he studied the battle reports. We destroyed them completely. Every world, every ship, every trace of their existence. His subordinates cowered as his rage filled the command chamber. Overlord, one of them dared to speak. The humans appear to have evolved beyond our previous encounters. They possess weapons and capabilities we have never seen before. Vexai activated the planetary bombardment systems built into his fortress ship. If he could not hold Earth, then he would make sure no one could have it. The humans might have returned, but they would find nothing but ashes when he finished with their homeworld. Charge the quantum destabilizers, he ordered. If these ghost humans want their dead planet, they can have it as cosmic dust. The human fleet detected the energy buildup immediately. Sensors that had been monitoring the alien fortress registered power levels that could only mean one thing. Overlord Vexai was preparing to destroy Earth rather than lose it to the returning descendants of its original inhabitants. Admiral Hyun Soo faced the most critical decision in human history: attack the fortress immediately and risk having Earth destroyed in the crossfire, or attempt to evacuate the system and lose their homeworld forever. Either choice would determine the fate of humanity for generations to come. General Lim Seok-jin felt the transport ship shudder as it broke through Earth's poisoned atmosphere. Around him sat 2,000 of humanity's finest soldiers ready to fight for every meter of their ancestral home. They wore armor enhanced with technology developed during 30 millennia of exile and carried weapons that could punch through Veltar defenses like hot knives through ice. The first wave of landing craft touched down in what had once been the Korean peninsula. Seok-jin's boots hit the toxic soil as enemy fire erupted from fortified positions among the mining equipment. Veltar soldiers emerged from underground bunkers with their characteristic insect-like movements, while automated defense turrets swiveled to target the invading humans. Commander Kwon Hai-won directed the space battle from the bridge of the destroyer Busan as Veltar reinforcements poured into the Sol system from neighboring star sectors. The alien empire had finally realized the scale of the threat they faced and was committing massive resources to crush the human uprising. Ships that had conquered dozens of worlds now found themselves fighting for survival against enemies they had believed extinct. "Incoming transmission from the Veltar fleet commander," reported the communications officer. "They are demanding our immediate surrender." "Tell them we have a counteroffer," Haewon replied with a cold smile. "They can surrender to us instead, Doctor." Ryu Chang-min watched from the weapons control center as his quantum disruptor cannons tore apart alien battlecruisers. The reality warping technology had taken centuries to perfect, but it could now collapse enemy shields and armor at the molecular level. Veltar ships that had seemed indestructible were reduced to expanding clouds of superheated gas within seconds. On the surface, Corporal Han Ye-jin led her squad through the ruins of what intelligence reports claimed had been Tokyo. The massive city was now nothing more than crystallized sand and twisted metal frameworks where skyscrapers had once reached toward the sky. Veltar mining machines crawled through the devastation like mechanical vultures feeding on the corpse of human civilization. "Movement ahead," whispered Private Kim Do-yeon as she spotted alien soldiers taking position behind the wreckage of an ancient subway entrance. At least a dozen hostiles with heavy weapons, Ye-jin activated the sonic grenades that had proven so effective against Veltar armor. The devices emitted frequencies that resonated with the aliens' chitinous shells and caused them to crack and shatter. The insect soldiers writhed in agony as their natural protection failed them for the first time in their evolutionary history. The battle for Earth's surface became increasingly brutal as both sides committed their elite forces to the fighting. Human soldiers discovered that the Veltar had been using preserved artifacts from human culture as decorations in their command centers. Ancient paintings and sculptures that had survived the initial bombardment were now trophy displays in alien headquarters. Seok-jin's rage burned white-hot when his troops found a Veltar officer wearing jewelry made from human bones. The alien commander had collected the remains of Earth's defenders and fashioned them into ornaments that he wore as symbols of his victory over an extinct species. "Kill them all," Seok-jin ordered his soldiers. "Show no mercy to creatures that would desecrate the dead." In space, the battle reached a new level of intensity as more Veltar fleets arrived from across their empire. Commander Haewon found his small human task force facing odds of 10 to 1 as enemy ships surrounded his position near the moon. But the aliens discovered that superior numbers meant little when facing technology they could not counter. "Deploy the phase fighters," Haewon commanded as his destroyer's hull began to buckle under concentrated fire. "All ships prepare for dimensional shift." The human vessels suddenly flickered out of normal space-time and reappeared behind the Veltar formation. Weapons that had been targeting empty space now found themselves firing uselessly, while human ships struck at the aliens' undefended rear sections. 3 enemy battleships exploded before their commanders could understand what had happened. Dr. Chang-min's most devastating creation was finally ready for deployment. The stellar compression bomb had been designed as humanity's ultimate weapon of revenge. It could destabilize a star and turn it into a supernova that would sterilize entire solar systems. If the Veltar would not surrender Earth, then Chang-min, was prepared to deny it to everyone. Target locked on the enemy flagship, he reported to Admiral Hyun-soo. One shot from this weapon will end Overlord Vexhai and everything within 1,000,000 kilometers of his position. But using the stellar bomb would also destroy Earth and every human fighting on its surface. The Admiral faced an impossible choice between victory and the survival of their homeworld. 30,000 years of exile would be meaningless if they had to destroy Earth to save it from their enemies. Ye-jin's squad discovered something that changed everything. Hidden beneath the ruins of Tokyo was a massive detention facility where the Veltar had been keeping human prisoners. Thousands of people who had been captured during raids on human colonies were being held in stasis pods while alien scientists conducted experiments on them. General Seok-jin, this is Corporal Han Ye-jin, she transmitted urgently. We have found something you need to see immediately. The aliens have been keeping humans alive for research purposes. The detention center contained horrors that defied description. Veltar scientists had been dissecting living humans to understand their biology and psychology. They had been trying to determine what made humans so difficult to completely eliminate, despite being technologically inferior to the alien empire. Seok-jin stared at the rows of stasis pods containing his fellow humans in various stages of medical experimentation. Some had been subjected to genetic modification, while others showed signs of psychological conditioning. The Veltar had been trying to create a slave race of modified humans who would serve the alien empire without question. Free them all, he ordered with tears of rage streaming down his face, and make sure the aliens responsible for this pay with their lives. The liberation of the detention centers provided humanity with thousands of additional fighters who knew Veltar weaknesses from personal experience. Former prisoners who had spent years studying their captors now became guides for human assault teams. The tide of battle began to shift as local knowledge combined with superior technology. Commander Haiwan received reinforcements just as his task force was about to be overwhelmed. Admiral Kim Yuna had committed the entire human reserve fleet to the battle for the Sol system. Ships that had been held in reserve for decades now poured through dimensional rifts and struck the Veltar forces from unexpected directions. This is Admiral Kim Yuna to all human forces. Her voice echoed across every communication channel. The cowards who destroyed our world 30,000 years ago will not escape justice today. Fight with the fury of the dishonored dead. Show these insects what humans can accomplish when they are truly angry. Overlord Vexhai watched the battle reports with growing disbelief. His forces were being systematically destroyed by enemies who should not exist. The humans were using tactics and weapons that surpassed anything in the Veltar arsenal. His mighty empire was being humbled by the ghosts of a species he thought he had exterminated. Activate the planetary bombardment system, he ordered his remaining subordinates. If we cannot hold this system, then we will deny it to the humans forever. The alien fortress began charging weapons capable of cracking planetary cores. Massive energy collectors drew power from the system's star while targeting computers locked onto Earth's gravitational center. In 10 minutes, Overlord Vexhai would have enough energy to split humanity's homeworld into asteroids. Dr. Chang Min detected the power buildup immediately. They are preparing to destroy Earth, he reported to the fleet command. We have less than 10 minutes before they achieve critical energy levels. Admiral Hyun-soo made his decision. The human fleet would assault Overlord Vexhai's fortress directly, even though it meant flying into the teeth of the aliens' most powerful defenses. Earth would be saved or humanity would die trying to protect it. All ships prepare for final assault, he commanded. Target that fortress and do not stop until it is destroyed. Our ancestors trusted us to avenge them. Today we keep that promise. Admiral Kim Yuna stood in the command center of her flagship watching as the entire human fleet converged on Overlord Vexhai's fortress above Earth. Every ship that had survived 30,000 years of exile now flew toward the alien commander, who had ordered their homeworld's destruction. This would be the final battle that decided humanity's fate for all time. Commander Kang Dae-ho led the desperate assault team that teleported directly onto the enemy fortress. His soldiers materialized, Inside corridors filled with Veltar guards while automated defense systems began targeting them with energy weapons. Dr. Park So-jin guided them through the alien ship's layout, using her detailed knowledge of Veltar architecture and biology. "The command center is 3 levels above us," So-jin reported, as they fought their way through waves of insect soldiers. "Overlord Vexhai will be there personally overseeing the planetary bombardment sequence." The fortress shuddered around them, as the human fleet poured concentrated fire into its shields. Admiral Yuna had committed every available ship to this final assault, knowing that failure would mean Earth's destruction and the end of humanity's dreams of reclaiming their homeworld. Daeho's team reached the command level just as the fortress's main weapon reached 80% charge. Through the transparent walls they could see Earth hanging in space below them, like a blue marble wrapped in poison clouds. In less than 5 minutes, Overlord Vexhai would have enough power to crack the planet's core and turn humanity's birthworld into an expanding field of debris. The alien commander stood at the center of his bridge, surrounded by control panels and holographic displays. His insect body was larger than his subordinates and covered with scars from previous battles. When he saw the human soldiers entering his domain, his mandibles clicked with what might have been laughter. "So the extinct species has finally come to face me," Vexhai hissed through his translator device. "I remember your world burning 30,000 years ago. I watched your cities turn to ash while your people fled like cowards into the darkness between stars." Daeho raised his weapon, but the Overlord was protected by personal shields that deflected human energy fire. The alien leader had survived countless assassination attempts during his long career, and his defenses were designed to stop any known form of attack. "You think your primitive weapons can harm me?" Vexhai continued as he activated combat systems, built into his armor. "I am the destroyer of worlds. I have eliminated dozens of species that were more advanced than your pathetic race." Dr. So-jin frantically worked at a nearby control station, trying to interrupt the planetary bombardment sequence. The weapon charge had reached 90% and Earth's death was now only minutes away. Her fingers moved across alien control interfaces while she desperately searched for the shutdown commands. Meanwhile, the space battle outside reached its climax as the human fleet threw everything they had at the fortress's defenses. Ships that had been humanity's home for generations now sacrificed themselves in ramming attacks against the alien shields. The destroyer Busan exploded against the fortress's hull, while its crew transmitted their final message to the fleet. "For Earth," came Commander Haewon's voice over the communication system as his ship's engines overloaded. "Remember us when you walk in the sunlight of our reclaimed world." Lieutenant Song Min-jun watched the battle from the assault transport where he waited with reinforcements for Daeho's team. The young officer had been born during the long exile and had never seen a planet's surface until this mission. Now he was witnessing the final battle for humanity's survival. Admiral Yuna received reports that half her fleet had been destroyed in the assault on the fortress. But their sacrifice had weakened the alien shields enough for boarding parties to penetrate the enemy stronghold. Everything now depended on Daeho's team reaching Overlord Vexhai before he could complete his final act of spite. Inside the command center, the confrontation between human and alien reached its deadly conclusion. Vexhai's personal shields failed when So-jin managed to disrupt the fortress's power grid. For the first time in the battle, the alien commander was vulnerable to human weapons. "You cannot stop what I have begun," Vexhai snarled as energy discharge sparked around his damaged armor. "Even if you kill me, the bombardment sequence will continue. Your world will still die and your species will remain homeless wanderers until the universe grows cold." Daeho fired his sonic weapon directly at the alien's cracking shell. The frequencies that Dr. So-jin had discovered proved devastatingly effective, as Vexhai's natural armor shattered like glass. The Overlord, who had terrorized countless worlds, now writhed in agony as his body was torn apart by harmonics that resonated with his evolutionary weaknesses. "This is for the 30,000 years you stole from us," Daeho said as he delivered the killing shot. "This is for every human child who died in exile dreaming of a home they would never see." But Vexhai's death came too late to prevent disaster. The planetary bombardment weapon had reached full charge and was now firing automatically at Earth's core. Massive energy beams lanced downward through the atmosphere toward the planet's molten center, where they would trigger a chain reaction that would tear the world apart. So-Jin and the engineering team led by Dr. Chang-min worked desperately to reverse the damage. They had only minutes before the energy beams reached critical depth and began the process that would destroy Earth forever. The irony was bitter. Humanity had won the battle but might still lose their homeworld to their dying enemy's final revenge. "I can reverse the beam polarity," Chang-min reported as he connected his equipment to the fortress's weapon systems. "But it will require all power from our ships to generate a counterpulse strong enough to neutralize the bombardment energy." Admiral Yuna did not hesitate. "All ships transfer power to the fortress weapon systems," she commanded. "If this is our only chance to save Earth, then we take it regardless of the cost." The surviving human fleet began shutting down their engines and life support systems to provide power for Changmin's desperate plan. Ships that had carried humanity through 30,000 years of exile now gave their last energy to save the world their crews would never live to see restored. The counterpulse fired just as the bombardment beams reached Earth's mantle. Opposing energies met deep beneath the planet's surface in a collision that sent shockwaves through the entire solar system. For a moment it seemed as if both forces would tear the world apart. Then the destructive energies canceled each other, and Earth's core stabilized. Lieutenant Min Jun led the first human landing party to touch Earth's surface after the battle's end. The planet was still poisoned and scarred, but it was whole, and could be healed given time and effort. He planted the new flag of humanity in soil that had not felt human footsteps for 30 millennia. The Veltar Empire sent surrender negotiations. Within days of Overlord Vexhai's death, species that had been their slaves for centuries now declared independence, while human fleets hunting down war criminals throughout their former territories. The insects who had once seemed invincible now begged for mercy from the ghosts they thought they had destroyed. Admiral Yuna rejected their peace offers. "There can be no mercy for those who would exterminate an entire species," she declared. "We will hunt down every Veltar who participated in Earth's destruction. Justice delayed is not justice denied." The war continued for another year as human forces systematically dismantled the alien empire that had stolen their world. But the most important victory had already been achieved. Earth was free, and humanity had come home. Children who had been born on generation ships during the long exile now played in the ruins of ancient cities, while terraforming equipment slowly restored the planet's atmosphere. Schools taught lessons under alien stars, but they also taught about the blue sky that their world would have again. Dr. So-Jin established the first research station in the ruins of Seoul, where she studied methods for accelerating Earth's ecological recovery. The poisoned soil could be cleansed and the dead oceans could be refilled with life. It would take centuries, but their homeworld would bloom again. 10 years after the liberation monuments were erected to honor those who had died during the long exile and the final battle. Every human who had lived and died dreaming of Earth's liberation was remembered in stone and metal markers that would endure for millennia. The generation ships that had been humanity's homes during exile were converted into orbital habitats around Earth. The new Seoul became a museum where future generations could learn about the long journey home and the price that had been paid for freedom. And in the restored gardens where Seoul had once stood, children who had never known exile played games that their ancestors had played under the same sun. The circle was complete and humanity had finally come home.